roll call.
Mr. Lamar.
Here, present.
Mr. Kubicki.
Present.
Ms. Hughes.
Present.
Stand for pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, with that, I make a motion to approve the signing of the meeting minutes of July 14, 2020. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar.
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki.
Yes.
Ms. Hughes.
Yes.
Okay, next I make a motion to approve the special meeting minutes of August 3rd, 2020. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar.
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki.
Yes.
Ms. Hughes.
Yes.
Okay, before we go into what we call kind of open forum, I kind of want to go make an announcement in case, since our last meeting that was televised, we had some big changes here. Mr. Kritikos has moved out of the community, and I want to welcome Brian Lamar to the board. We had a special meeting on August 3rd to appoint him as our new trustee, and just want to read some of my notes here for a minute. But it's our last televised trustee meeting. It's bittersweet to announce that Chris Kritikos has moved out of the community, and because of the statute, we had to find a candidate and vote and replace him within 30 days, and we held a special meeting on August 3rd and replaced Chris with Madison Place resident Brian Lamar. Brian's a 16-year resident of Columbia Township in the Madison Place neighborhood. He's a market research executive for Global Brands. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Marketing and from UK and a master's degree in marketing from the University of Georgia. We're thrilled to have Brian as our newest trustee and believe his passion for the community and experience will be huge assets. Brian's an expert at gathering information and doing studies and finding optimal and best practices to make the most of the data he collects. So I think he'll be a huge asset to the community and bring some unique traits that I don't have the skills to do. So I think it's a really neat compliment to what Susan brings, to what Brian brings, and to what I bring, Caroline, everybody else. So welcome. And Brian, I don't know if you want to say something.
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And as you mentioned, I live on Rose Street in Madison Place, and I'm super excited to be here and to help support this community, one that I love and I'm very passionate about. I think that those that don't know me should find out that I'm accessible, and I'm certainly passionate about this, and I want to do what I can to improve the community. I want to do a lot of things. I want to make sure we get things out of the way to help with the bike trail, and I want to help with businesses, and I want to help improve home values. And all of these things I'm very passionate about. And I also want to thank people that, have put a lot of trust in me. And those are the people here. So I want to thank Melissa, Susan, David, Carolyn, and Mike Lemon as well. So I really appreciate the trust that the community has in me, and looking forward to serve.
Well, thank you.
Well, welcome. And we had a good board before, and I feel real good we're going to have a good one now, too.
And I should thank Chris as well. I became friends with Chris. He's a great guy, and I'm sad that he had to go for me to replace him, but I'm excited.
We are too. And now I'm just going to say a couple things about Chris. Losing Chris was a huge setback for me, especially after losing Mike Lemon only a few months before. I knew Chris was looking for a more family-oriented home since he lives kind of in a empty nester type product over on Indian Hill Road, is where he lived in Madison Place. I just was hoping he'd find a place in the township, but he found a place. I'm happy for him. I considered him a great trustee that brought so much to the community and also a friend. We'll miss him and do something properly to tribute him when this COVID stuff ends, along with Mike Lemon. We'll put them both in queue because they've both done so much for the community. So thank you, Chris, for all you've done. And then when I got acquainted with Brian and got to meet him and saw his experience and his background, and finally really kind of got acquainted with him. And we didn't know each other that well, but I really looked at what his background is, and I think he can help us out with a lot of things. And that we're going through, and I thought he's perfect. He can help us. So Brian, welcome, welcome, welcome. Chris, we miss you, love you if you're watching, and all of this. But Brian, I think you're going to bring some great things, unique talents and skills to the community. And with that, I guess we're more attributing Chris. So Susan, I don't know if you had a few words you want to say about Chris And we'll
Well-
tribute him later in a bigger way, but
I would just like to say that Chris was a gentleman, and he would fit in our board. We were a good board, and he will be missed because of that. And I wish him luck and health and a lot of happiness raising his family wherever his new home is. Thank you, Chris.
thank you. Caroline, I know you knew him well as well.
Yeah, and I agree with Susan. Chris is just a gentleman, and I've enjoyed seeing just the workings of the township and how everyone gets along so nicely, and Chris was a big part of that. And his enthusiasm will be missed, but I also think Brian brings a lot of enthusiasm. I'm very excited about that. It's been really nice to get to know him. I look forward to getting to know him better. But Chris, I will miss very much and have enjoyed working with him, and I'm just privileged to call him my friend. My son thinks he's cool, so that's high praise.
We don't get that, Susan. And my kids think he's cool too. So, okay, well, thank you. That, we move on to open forum. Do we have anybody that's written anything to open forum?
I do not have anything, but I believe both Melissa and David have had some emails from some residents, if you want to take that.
Okay, I guess I will start, and Melissa, you fill in if I miss something here, but I know Stacy Bryant reached out to me and mentioned, talking about the appointment of Brian to the township, and kind of asked, I'll read this, Mike Ty let me know that Chris Criticos resigned as trustee and Brian Lamar has been appointed as a replacement. Could you please let me know the details of the selection process, criteria for candidate selection, community notification of opening, number of candidates interviewed, etc., in appointing Brian? Thank you. Well, thank you, Stacy, for asking. And we generally follow the rules and the laws of the Ohio State statutes and hired Mr. Lamar the same way we've hired anybody in the last, even people before me in the last 20 years, and we appoint somebody when they move. Ms. Heaton came through the same process when Paul Davis left the community. To some extent, it's very similar to what we did when we hired Melissa Taylor. And Brian was selected the same way all of the positions vacated over the history of the township. And I guess as a practical matter, the way it works, just because you wonder what all this means, is Chris calls me and says, I'm thinking about moving. I said, you sure? And he thinks he's got a place picked out. I thought, all right, again, hoping that he relocates in the community and he finalizes his deals and moves immediately and notifies me. We have 30 days to replace him, correct, Melissa?
Correct. He notified us that he vacated July 17th.
July 17th. So we have 30 days to replace him. A little bit of devastation of thinking, I can't believe this is happening, especially after Mike Lemon leaving. So I call the others to inform Ms. Heakin, Ms. Hughes, and say, hey, we've lost Chris Criticos, unfortunately. Obviously congratulate Chris on his further endeavors with his family. And then you sit down, you think of the candidates and the people that you know to invite, and invite others to do the same. And for me personally, I've lived in my neighborhood for 30-plus years, and we have a lot of qualified professional people, retirees, and I go through my neighborhood and think, those are the people probably I'm closest to. Then I go through and talk to Caroline, Melissa, Susan, and others, and find out who are some other people that you would consider, think of, from Ridgewood, Madison Place, etc. And then, we talk to a couple of candidates in Madison Place, and we talk to some candidates over in Ridgewood. I go through my mind and think of some candidates in Williams Meadow, and then I finally decide maybe it's best that I don't pick more people from Williams Meadow. It's probably best I focus on some of the other areas. And just to be clear, Brian and I had to go track down your telephone number. I didn't have it. I finally tracked down his email address, sent him an email where, I don't know him that well, but I know he's passionate about the township, etc. And when I sat down and talked to him and thought, this is a good fit, I mentioned it to Melissa. I'd also talked to Mike Lemon about it. Everybody thought it could be a good fit. Susan, you talked to him. And then pretty soon you go look and go, this could be a good fit. And Melissa directs us and tells us how we go appointing him. And that's the way it works. Very short process, especially with COVID and such. So thrilled to be able to get all this done so quickly. So that is kind of the process. Did I miss anything there that you think maybe needs to be touched on?
No, the actual appointment was made in a public meeting.
Okay.
The notice was sent, as with all of our public meetings, the Friday before, and open to the public.
Got it. So, again, welcome aboard. We hate to go through the nuts and bolts on this. I'm really excited about having you and listening to your passion. So I think we're going to be thrilled to have them, and so all's good.
I'll second that.
All right. Next, I guess I just hate to do all the talking here for a minute, but we've got an email from Mr. Jones, Carl Jones, and kind of questioning some of the fire board things that are going on, and I know that stuff kind of gets out in the community, so I'm just going to read this informally and kind of give you my loose responses to it, so it's clear to people that can't attend these meetings, et cetera, what's going on. But anyway, I'm going to read here just so I don't misinterpret this. I'll make sure I have this. I'm really confused about, this is from Carl Jones, I'm really confused about the Little Miami Fire Department conversations. First, the township's paying Mike Lemon to, quote, talk to Marymount about the fire department, quote, shared services. Is he talking shared services for the township and only, and what part, or with Little Miami totally? Second, I also heard David Kubicki's also talking to Marymount about fire services. Is he talking service for the township and only in what part of Little Miami Fire District? Why are both of them talking to Marymount? Confusion, exclamation point. Why do we need Lemon if Kubicki is negotiating with Marymount? Third, shouldn't this be your priority as administrator? He's talking to Melissa now, and member of the fire board. Melissa's our latest member of the fire board. I think so, exclamation point. If Kubicki is going to negotiate with them, the township doesn't need Lemon and save a lot of time, money, and confusion. Why isn't Little Miami Fire Department Board talking to Marymount? Don't want to involve Fairfax, question mark. The Little Miami Fire Department conversation starts about 45 minutes in. He had sent us a link about Marymount's conversation, so he sent us that. You really need to watch the meeting as a board member. I listened to the meeting below, and as confused as I am, where is the transparency, no tax increases? Well, again, Melissa, please fill me in, because I'm hopeless at this kind of stuff, but the Little Miami Fire Department, it consists of 6 board positions, of which we have 2, and of which I sit on 0. I have none. I really, in theory, have no say in what happens. They mention my name. We have 2 spots. We have 2 votes of 6. I'm not on it, nor have any authority to do anything. I've offered to help them in the past, as I've seen sometimes on social media kind of getting talked about. I've offered to help in the past, and it's been clearly instructed by me that I'm not on the fire board by, I don't want to go into names and such, so we had to go take some more creative action to go take better control of what was going on. Again, Little Miami Fire Board is a separate taxing authority. We have 2 votes. I'm not on the fire board. Any of the problems that are going on right now, I was not a part of. They've been going on for 20 years, but I am fully engaged, fully aware, and fully on board of how to go help fix it. Then we go on that I've talked to a Cincinnati fireman yesterday, and he said since he does accept contracts from other governments, again, they would be able to cover all of the township under one contract and save the township money. Where's the problem with this idea? Dave Kubicki and Mike Lemon. Again, I remind you, I'm not on the fire board. I have no say in it. Marymount is the logical partner for the area of the Fairfax, Madison Place, Columbia Township area. It's the logical partner of Fairfax. When I say Fairfax, the Little Miami Fighters has to drive through Marymount to get to Madison Place or Columbia Township, namely 50 West, those kind of areas, in order to get there. They're the logical partner. I firmly believe we should have been partnering with them 20 years ago before I was there, and that is my goal. And we are putting all the resources we can to get that done, and it's very complicated, it's very complex, and it's going to need Melissa from showing what the world in the future looks like, myself from a relationship driven of knowing the police chief, the fire chief, the mayor, and all the council members, and then Mike Lemon of knowing the history, the numbers. It takes a lot of people to go get this done, and there's no promises we're going to get it done, But what I'm getting at is I promise everybody I'm gonna do everything I can to get it done, and it hadn't been done in 20 years, and I think that just anybody can do it is a bit unfair, and just, you know, we're gonna dedicate all our resources we can to see if we can't figure out a solution to do something and partner in some way with Marymount, and everything is on the table, and we're looking to do it. And let's see what else. No one else would take. And the other thing too is if we continue to go talk to all these loose ends and you continue to talk to many, many people, nobody's gonna take you seriously. The logical partner is to try to figure out something with Marymount, and if Marymount doesn't work, we'll find another solution. I'll let Melissa talk about the more positive things in a minute about what we're doing with the fire department, but I just want to deal with some of the rumors and some of the innuendo that goes out here in both social media and what we get written about. Let's see what else we got. Mike making plan, this is Mike Lemon presumably, making plan now would be impossible, too many unknowns. Kubicki doesn't have a plan now. Well, I do have a plan. I do have an idea what I'm doing. I work tirelessly on this. I've had meetings scheduled now. I have meetings scheduled over the last week. I've talked to Melissa about it. I talked to Mike about it. So there's a plan in place. To be clear, we have other people that are involved, and I'm not positive that we will ultimately succeed. But what I can tell you is that we will have the best resources in place and the best resources to make those relationships work. And if it doesn't work, I will give you scientific, logical answers as to why it didn't work. And I believe we have leadership in Marymount right now that is well open-minded to making it work. So I'm optimistic, but I'm not positive. Let's see, you outputting, and, you know, again, as I go look and you know, the tone of Kubicki doesn't have a plan, I mean, I don't know what productive we're all trying to do, but that's not a really good dynamic way to go build spirit and teamwork of that we don't have a plan when we're working hard on this. It's not productive, and I just wish that wasn't presented to the community. It doesn't help us if we're going out trying to do things with Marymount to think that there's a part of our community that doesn't support us, or that we're not on top of our game, and that we don't have the best and brightest resources. So while it won't phase us, we'll do what we do. It's not productive to be shouting out these things. And Carl, certainly you have my telephone number. You can call me. So to say that I don't have a plan without talking to me isn't productive either. Next, contract with CFD is possible, which I suppose is Cincinnati Fire District, but Kubicki sees no potential upside for him. Political upside for him. I will always do what's in the best interest of the township. Hard to respond to that. And then I heard Kubicki's resigning. I had not heard that. Okay, and then Kritikos has resigned, and yes, that's true. And then we'll leave it with bye, Chris K. Have a good life, and that's kind of the way it is. Oh yeah, and one more thing, a new one. Brian Lamar is a puppet. I don't know what interactions they've had with Brian to suggest such. I really don't know Brian Lamar that well, but I think he's going to be a huge addition and a positive resource for us in the community. So didn't mean to go too far on that. I know everybody can't come into the public, but that's kind of my reaction to this stuff, because I know Carl and some of the others come in and put this stuff out and talk to a lot of people, and so that's that. And as far as Mike Lemon goes, I'm going to address this again. Mike came into the Little Miami Fire District to put infrastructure in, to understand it from an administrative standpoint. Not Susan, not Chris, not me. We don't have the day-to-day administrative experience and knowledge that Mike has. Mike has worked on that for 2 years. He understands the numbers better than anybody. Anybody on the board, anybody in the fire department, better than us. And that's why he was on there, and he's got it down. And before he left, when he told me he was retiring, I said, I really want to go finish this before I throw this in the hands of somebody that doesn't know any of the personalities, the players, the numbers. It makes no sense. The goal was to exit our deal with Gulf Manor and negotiate a positive deal, and working potentially with mediation, et cetera. And it would be unfair and unwise to throw a new administrator, not that Melissa's not very capable of it, but to go throw her in and not knowing any of the players, the numbers, and bring her up to speed. So I stand firmly behind the decision. And when Mike retired, he retired for a reason, and that's because he wanted to go on and spend time with his family, travel, vacation, and get away from this. And as he wisely said, the hardest part of this job that he's ever done was was trying to go find positive solutions for the fire department because of all of the things involved. So I want to thank Mike Lemon for being willing, pleading with him to come back and do what he's doing. So thank you, Mike, if you happen to see this, for coming back and being willing to go take the hardest part of your job and take, there's the filet mignon, and then there's the other parts of the cow that you don't want to deal with. He's coming back to do the parts that nobody wants to deal with. It's just so complex, and there's so many more moving parts. So thanks, Mike, and Mike also bringing the knowledge, expertise to help work with me to explore the best scenarios for us to do anything in Marymount. He was a former mayor of Marymount. He knows the numbers better than anybody. I'm more of a relationship guy, more of a deal maker, a play maker. Mike, I need him for the numbers, and I need Melissa so that they understand who they would be working for in the future. It is a three-pronged approach, and yes, it takes all three of us to go do it, and I'm still not sure we're going to succeed. And as I've said before, Little Miami Fire District is underfunded and needs new revenues. Marymount has the same problem. It's a logical fit. It should have happened 20 years ago. I want all of the best resources to help make that happen, and that includes myself, Mike Lemon, Melissa, the trustees, fiscal officer, the staff, everything it takes, and we're doing everything we can to continue to work towards that goal. And that said, as it relates to, I know Carl alluded to the administrator, which you being on the fire board, Melissa, so I'm gonna let you, I dealt with kind of the putting out the fires and the drama and the rumors. I'm gonna let you talk about what's really going on in a positive end, because you're the more positive person.
End person. Okay.
Go.
So I have on the agenda later, under administrator report, more the kind of the nuts and bolts of the fire department transition. And what I'd like to do, because even though you took care of that piece of it, I would like to share just from my perspective a little more to what you just shared. And then if you're interested, I can go ahead and just do a little quick nuts and bolts, or if you want to wait until I get to the administrator.
I think you should hit the fire department now while
Okay.
people are just this is
So
to remain the public comments.
Let's do that. So I am a former resident of the community, but as you said, did not sit in Mike Lemon's shoes for 2 decades. I have worked in other communities, very large communities, where one we had a fire district in Mason, and another where we had our own fire district, our own fire department, which was Westchester, 60,000 residents. So have familiarity with how these things work. I agree that Mike is the right person to be in this mix with us, because as you said, he knows the dynamics and he knows the numbers better than anyone. What I have heard and what you have just referenced is that there seems to be some questions around the transparency of the fire district reorganization. I have had people make comments about, well, our fire truck's just going to stop showing up. Also, there's been, as was pointed out, you pointed out, don't pass any new taxes on us. And then lastly, that common theme was there's no plan. I would like to kind of put those two to bed. On the transparency issue, the 3 members of the fire district, Columbia Township and Fairfax, the original members of the fire district, and with Gulf Manor, who came on board almost 3 years ago, decided that because the financial benefits that were proposed with the Gulf Manor merger did not materialize, that we wanted to return to the original structure of the fire district with Columbia Township and Fairfax. We wanted to make sure that we had a fair outcome for all 3 communities. So we actually sought out cooperatively 2 partners to work with us from the Supreme Court of Ohio through an agreement process. But by doing that, earlier this year, 5 months ago, when I first came on board, Mike, me, and the other members of the board and the attorneys, it bound us to confidentiality. And if any of us breached that confidentiality, we would be in breach of the Supreme Court process. So we reached agreement in July, this month that just ended, the 3 members did for a cooperative 18-month transition. And as of that agreement, we are allowed to begin sharing information that came out of those transition discussions. So that addresses the transparency. And so this is actually the first board meeting after the agreement was inked that we're allowed to share information. And I, as I said, have on for the administrator's report details about the transition, and I'll share those as well. So let me go through just a couple of notes that I have. I understand that people may have questions about the news that we are going to reorganize the fire district. So we were transitioning back to the original members, Columbia Township and Fairfax, who have been in this membership for decades. And to address the concerns that at some point on a date in the future that fire and EMS will no longer show up, there is no scenario whatsoever that Little Miami Fire and Rescue would not continue to provide the excellent fire and EMS services that it has consistently delivered for decades and decades. That fire district is not, as you've said, in financial trouble. The fire district actually operates in the black. It is, however, underfunded, but those are two completely different things. Financial trouble means you cannot pay your bills. That is not the case with the Little Miami Fire and Rescue District. It has never been the case, and it will never be the case. However, it is underfunded, and what that means is we have the funds, speaking as a board member, to pay all operating costs, but we want to not only have an eye on today, we want to have an eye on the future. Having an eye on the future requires 2 additional things that the current levy does not cover, but a partnership, membership, or contracted services would, and that is to boost the reserve. And number 2, to be able to invest more significantly in safety equipment and technology to assure that our EMS and professional firefighters have the tools that they need to continue to deliver services. So Little Miami may be underfunded, defined the way that I did. However, Columbia Township is not underfunded. In fact, we are far from it. Columbia Township, if it were needed, would write a check in 24 hours to the Little Miami Fire and Rescue District. But we don't anticipate that that's going to happen because we have, which is another theme, a plan. So why can we, Columbia Township, a small township in a very large region, why could we write a substantial check on within a day? And it is because this is a professionally run community. We have diverse leaders on this board, the 4 of you. We have diverse management in our staff, and we have a strong bank account. Susan, you have more than 23, 24 years on this board. David, you are at 11 years, pushing 12, and you respect each other, you trust each other, and even more importantly, you like each other. You are civil. You are courteous. There's no room in this community and on this board for drama. We do not have time for drama because we are busy getting work done. And when you make an appointment, like Brian, to this board, you are picking someone who has your same values and your same expectations. And it has been my experience as a former resident and now as an administrator that every time the voters go to the polls, they continue to elect you, they continue to elect you, and they continue to elect people like Brian who share these same values. Let's work and let's leave the drama to the other communities who are more interested in serving themselves than serving their constituents. So I would like to say that my experience before coming here is, and I've said this before in the first couple of meetings after I started, I was a national consultant for communities that were trying to do better in terms of their service delivery and their budgeting. And I applied the tools all across the nation that when I had the opportunity to come and work here were already in place. big ideas that lead to big money. Creative, progressive economic development tools like a joint economic development district, tax increment financing, medical marijuana dispensary host community agreements. These tools that all of you put into place before I even came here are going to enable us to do bigger things for this community and to be behind these services like fire, police, roads and others that we do where the levies do not support the level of services that this community is receiving. We have a nearly $5 million budget, and we bring in, on top of levies, more than $2 million in money through these economic development tools. So that is why we are in great shape. Strong leadership, no drama, a strong bank account, and we have the Little Miami Fire District's back. So there's a plan for the transition, which I'll hit on here shortly. We're not looking to raise the levy. We're looking for cost efficiencies. We're looking for membership, for partnerships, for shared contracts, and hopefully that explains the need, the reason for that we're just now sharing this information. So very briefly, Fire District kind of 101. The Fire District is transitioning back to our original members, as I mentioned before. That will become effective January 1 of 2022. After nearly 4 years planning for a merger and being in a partnership with Gulf Manor, as I mentioned earlier, the financial benefits that were in the proposed merger did not materialize. And this board, as David has said, with Mike, said we need to take swift action to correct this, and we did, starting this year. Fortunately, Gulf Manor agreed to withdraw from the district, and it will restore the Little Miami District back to our original membership. We set up an 18-month transition that we just started last month, and in 2021, Gulf Manor will pass legislation withdrawing from the district. That effective date will be December 31st, 2021. So, in January of 2022, Little Miami will continue as it is today, as it will tomorrow, as it will next year. It will continue uninterrupted fire and EMS services to Columbia Township and Fairfax, and it will be continued to be funded by the current fire levy in both of those communities. Gulf Manor will spend the next year plus determining whether it wants to rebuild its fire department, contract for its fire services, or look for its own membership in another district. And it will, at the end of next year, carve its community's levy out and use those funds toward its own services. There will be no visible change to any business or residents in this township or in Fairfax. We have, as David mentioned, all hands on deck to make sure this plan turns out phenomenally. And David also mentioned that fire districts have very unique dynamics, and here's why. Little Miami Joint Fire District is not a department. They don't report to me. They don't report to you. It's a district, and the statute requires the board. David mentioned earlier, we have during Gulf Manor's membership 1/3 vote on the board. So the dynamics of a board are that relationships are critical. And this board has demonstrated that it can build relationships with member communities. We have a relationship with Fairfax in a joint fire district. We have a relationship with Fairfax in a joint economic development zone. We have relationships with other neighborhoods, other communities, in other shared services. We have demonstrated that we are a trustworthy, reliable partner, and we're going to go out and do this again for Little Miami Fire District. So Brian Lamar and I are officially on the Fire District Board, and the transition plan, just to wrap up, is David will continue doing what he is doing now, building relationships, strengthening relationships with all of the leadership, elected and otherwise, in all of the communities in the eastern part of Hamilton County, not just for the fire levy, but for other opportunities for cost savings for other shared services. I am tag teaming with him on that as the new administrator. And then Mike Lemon with Carson Shelton, the mayor of Fairfax, Jenny Kaminer, my counterpart, the administrator of Fairfax, Mike and me, all four meet monthly, talk weekly about what the 18-month transition plan duties are and what the different scenarios are, so that we will be more than prepared come January 1, 2022. I would like to invite anyone who hears a different story, either on social media or from a neighbor than has been told today, to call David or Brian or Susan or Mike Lemon or me, and we will do two things for you. We will buy you coffee and we will give you the facts. And that's how we should be as a community over these next 18 months, and I hope that that's helpful for everyone.
Appreciate that. And a couple other things too, just to be clear, is Melissa and I spearheaded a group of all the local leaders, and Melissa, you remind me because you're a better speaker than me, who all came, the mayors of
Marymount, Newtown, Forest Park,
Fairfax,
Fairfax,
Terrace Park, Marymount, Newtown,
and Marymount, and we had a couple of fire chiefs,
etc. But it's the
Couple
first
fire
time a
chiefs.
lot of these guys in these local communities even got to meet each other. And we met down at 50 West. It was a very productive meeting where everybody was just very thankful that somebody got together and did it. So we are working to that end. I actually have a meeting set up, just to be clear, with the mayor of Marymount and the police chief and acting safety officer on Thursday with Mike Lemon, collectively, to continue to talk about options and ideas. The only other thing too is in the whole negotiations with the separation with Gulf Manor, it's been clear to us when we did this that we want Gulf Manor to kind of go back to where we were, just kind of reset it, and that we would do whatever we could to help contract with Ridgewood as it was before. So as you said, Melissa, there'd be no changes there, and not put them in any hardship, and work collectively and productively together. The only other couple things I wanted to mention to you, when we talk about the future, Melissa, is, you and I chatted before about the medical marijuana and the fact that, correct me where I'm wrong, the first 3 months of 2018 come up in 2019 is when the first medical marijuana dispensary opened, and as they were new, 3 months into it, the one medical marijuana dispensary gave us a medical marijuana, if you will, proceeds that we share with them on the partnership we had, $56,000. That's almost 20 grand a month from one in their infancy. So, I mean, we're excited about that being huge in terms of getting funded to be able to do a lot of things. And this board here is diverse and dynamic as they are from all the different communities. The big question we have is, all right, now how do we take these revenues, know that we're fiscally sound, and translate them into ways to go benefit the community, benefit the neighborhoods, and hopefully there'll never be a tax levy again, would be my goal. Not saying it's not going to be, but that's my goal. Is
no
to go,
new tax
no
levy,
new
just
tax
renewals.
Levy. No, just renewals.
Just renewals.
Thank you. That's why you're here. And but so there'll be nothing new. That how do we go take this and do something great for the community? So the future abounds, and I'm glad, Melissa, that you have a fresh look to come in and say there's all these good things going on, rather than kind of apologizing. And one of the things we've talked about here, recently, that we're trying to go at least initiate and take to the trustees and the rest of the team here, is ways that we can go invest in our residential neighborhoods. And we hope to have some more positive plans of things we're working on, but we have plans in place and how to go make all this stuff mean something. So I don't know if anybody else has got anything to add here, since we don't have public forum, et cetera, but that's what's going on. We have a plan, we've got good things going on, and I think it's great that we continue to talk about them and not just sit here on, if you bit defense of the negative things we could hit on. So thank you for bringing that fresh, bright breath of fresh air of the way things look. Things are going great in Columbia Township. They really are. Yeah, so that said, welcome, welcome, welcome. Chris, goodbye. Mike, we love you. And let's move on with the rest of the meeting.
Reports.
Reports, road superintendent report. Any questions about Mr. Savisi's road superintendent report? Anything to add? Lieutenant Enderly isn't here, but we have a surrogate here to come tell us anything to add to the report or talk about or answer.
I don't have the report totally done at the moment.
Okay.
I'm waiting on some other information to come in so I can finish it. Hopefully it'll be in the next couple of days.
Okay, then we move on to the fiscal officer report with Ms. Heekin.
July marked the start of the second half of our fiscal year, and the general fund balance is $2,747,538, which is an increase of 1% from June. Restricted fund balance is $4,961,193, which is a decrease of 4% from June. Total, or combined, these funds total $7,708,731, which is down 3% from June. Revenues for July were $333,483, and expenses were $532,983. Year-to-date revenues, $3,292,757, and year-to-date expenses, $2,420,108. And as of the end of July, we have received 76% of estimated revenues for 2020. The next significant revenue receipt will be in September, when the auditor provides the property tax settlements for the second half of the year. Our joint economic development zone met July 14th and agreed to reduce revenue estimates for 2021 by 20% due to the pandemic's impact on business profits and on employees. We do not know how long the pandemic's impact may extend into 2021, but agreed to be conservative in our forecast. And we are fortunate to be able to continue providing all the quality services with no interruption, because the trustees and our professional staff are committed to conservative budgeting practices with both our voter-approved levy revenues and our JETS business revenues.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? That we would go back to the Honorable Ms. Taylor to talk about the administrator's report.
Two very quick items. One, on Thursday, August 20th, which is next Thursday, tentatively at 7 p.m., we are going to celebrate the completion of the new Worcester Pike Crosswalk at an event with our co-sponsor 50 West, and Beatles fans will recognize the most famous photograph of the band was taken in a London crosswalk. And it became the cover of the Abbey Road album. So interestingly, August is the same month as that iconic photo of the Beatles was shot. However, it was 1969. Some of us were around, some were not. It is 51 years later, the same month, only a couple of weeks difference on the day. And we are going to celebrate the public-private partnership, another theme of economic development tools by this board and by this administration. This public-private partnership was with 50 West, Great Parks of Hamilton County for the scenic Little Miami Trail, and Columbia Township. And that led to the connectivity, the crosswalk between our sidewalk system, the park, trail, and all of the entertainment and recreational venues that are developing along the Worcester Pike 50 West corridor. The theme will be Come Together, which is a great metaphor.
Awesome.
People may think because of COVID, but I will stick to public-private partnership, come together. And so if you're a Beatles fan, you'll know that the other iconic song from that album was Here Comes the Sun. And we're hoping that happens next Thursday as well. Otherwise, we may have to come up with a rain date. But watch for later this week social media blasts coming from 50 West and also on Columbia Township's website.
And everybody's invited.
Everybody's invited, open to the public. We are going to actually work with the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office to stop traffic. And we are going to have a ribbon cutting, and then we are all going to cross 7 p.m., all cross crosswalk. So, two road project updates. So Moffett and Eversole is under construction, and then also Hillendale is under construction. So specific to Moffett and Eversole, that road project is so narrow, our contractor, under the oversight of our road superintendent, John Cervisi, they are having to deconstruct and rebuild the road in segments. Typically, we try to keep one lane open and then switch to the other side of the road. There is not sufficient width there to do that. We and the contractor have spoken with all of the residents. They're being incredibly patient. It is a challenging work zone. And so I was mentioning this earlier to some of the members of the board, and we are going to throw a block party for the residents of Moffett and Eversole to celebrate when this is done and to thank them for how cooperative they've been. Some people are parking their cars and hauling equipment across the road.
Idea.
So thanks. It was somebody else's idea, Mr. Kubicki. All right, and Hillendale kicked off as well. Both of these road projects, depending on the weather, will be completed at the end of this year. Final thing I would like to say that we have flowers on our table today. I would like to thank Peggy Landis of Williams Meadow for dropping them off. She knows that it has been very challenging with COVID and other things that are going on with the fire department transition, and she wanted to send good cheer our way, and we thank Peggy for being such a fantastic citizen, positive attitude, cares about others. We would love to have many more like you.
That's
And
awesome.
that point about Peggy, she's always one that sends polite little notes if your
Yes.
kids are in the paper for honor roll or whatever else. So Peggy, you're the best.
He's a good gardener, too.
Yes. Okay, we already covered the Little Miami Joint Fire District to a lot. Deer Park, Silverton, I don't know, is there anything to add there, Melissa?
No, I don't have any.
Okay, then we move on to trustees' reports. First, we'll start with Susan, anything to report?
No.
Brian?
I sort of have something to report. I can say that I ate at the 50 West Burger Bar recently, and I know they're hiring, which I thought that was great that during this time period they're hiring for cooks, and so that's a good sign for recovering. And then also, I attended the open house at the Madison Place Coffee Shop. It's on Plainville in Madison Place, and the space is fantastic. It's the old Bailey's Hardware shop, which most people that have lived there for a long time have been there. I certainly went there many times. And they had an open house on Saturday, well attended. They had coffee and food and donuts and just nice people. There were lots of people there. You could tour the coffee shop. You could go upstairs to some apartments that they've renovated. And they announced that they're opening, I think it's September 5th. It's a
Grand
pamphlet we got.
opening.
Saturday, September 5th is the grand opening. But I would encourage people to attend it. It's locally owned. People that work there live in the community, and I think that's important to think local. And especially during times like this, it's probably not easy to open a restaurant. But it is a big enough space to where I think people will feel comfortable attending and having social distancing. And they also have a community room. And so if you're looking for a place to have a meeting of some sort, a club or anything, reach out to them because they're very open. They want to serve the community. And so that was my trustee report, first one.
Great, and to your point about 50 West, thank you, Brian, but to your point about 50 West, I ran into a couple of young ladies that are my daughter's grade about, them employing sometimes the first jobs, and it's kind of a byproduct of some of these little places and how much they just love it. And the coffee shop is a good representative of how they can do it over in Madison Place. So it's in addition just to the pure employment, it's having these kids have their first jobs and work in local places that they just love. So that's a huge little thing that I never really realized till the 50 West, seeing some of my kids' friends work there and how much it meant to them. That, and another thing I would throw out is you see an article that's in our thing where medical marijuana industry maturing as sales grow. So, I mean, again, all positive things and could mean great things in the partnerships we made. And again, thank you, Mike Lemon, for part of that and giving us all the tools we need to go give Melissa the chance to go to the moon. So thank you. Thank you to everybody. All right, that said, we move on to communications. I just read the one about medical marijuana industry sales are growing. Now we go on to motions, and I always hand this off to people that can read these better than me, so it goes back to Melissa.
We have one motion on the agenda this evening. The Hamilton County Township Association has a seat on the Ohio Public Works Commission District Integrating Committee. That mouthful boils down to OPWC is the state agency that provides millions of dollars of grants annually through Issue 1 funds for roads and bridges and water and sewer, and there's full representation in each of the regions on district integrating committees across municipalities, townships, and the different communities. So there is a changing of the guard at the District 2, which is for Hamilton County. So the board is being asked to pass a motion to vote for, and I'll read it. Motion to vote for these members and alternates to represent the Hamilton County Township Association on the Ohio Public Works Commission District Integrating Committee for Hamilton County, also known as District 2. They are Denny Connor, Sycamore Township, member. Tony Roselio, did I say that correctly? Mm-hmm. Green Township, member. Dan Unger, Colerain Township, alternate for Denny Connor. Josh Girth, Anderson Township, alternate for Tony Roselio.
I make a motion we approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
Okay, next we move on to resolutions.
We have 3 short resolutions this evening. The first one is one reading only, as it is a financial resolution. It's a supplemental appropriation. A quick reminder, a supplemental appropriation is when we make changes to our budget that were not anticipated when we originally established the budget. In July of 2019, we established the budget by law for 2020. We are a year later, and here are several examples of budget changes that we would not have anticipated, and so we handle that through a supplemental appropriation. So the 3 items on the list are for us to accept the settlement for the police cruiser that was totaled earlier in the year, and another police vehicle, which we spoke about at a prior board meeting, was wrecked. Lieutenant Enderly says an unfortunate crossing of paths with a deer. And so we have a check from the insurance company for the auto body repair. Additionally, we spoke at the last meeting about receiving a grant from the state of Ohio for coronavirus relief funds. And so we have to deposit that and also approve to spend it. So that covers the supplemental appropriation, so I will read one reading. Authorizing a resolution to supplement Resolution 19-23, 2019, which was the Columbia Township 2020 annual appropriation, and Resolution 2019, the 2020 supplemental appropriation, which was a supplemental appropriation we did earlier this year. This is one reading only. I have read the title of the resolution. May I have a motion and a second to pass?
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
The resolution for supplemental appropriation is passed and is in effect. We have 2 additional resolutions. They're both emergency. I will read the titles and then do a very brief explanation. The first resolution is authorizing the administrator to enter into a contract for the purchase of real estate for Moffett Street right-of-way from Lawrence Deese, dispensing with the second reading and declaring an emergency. As I mentioned earlier, we are already under construction with Moffett and Ebersole. Last fall, the board approved a contract for construction, and construction began this spring after a short delay due to COVID. And we need a piece of right-of-way in order to complete the street. And the property owner, when I began, I reopened the offer to the property owner, And we followed the law in making an offer from a third-party appraiser, and in this case, based on the piece of property that we need to acquire, the offer is $4,854, good faith offer. And Mr. D signed the contract to purchase July 23rd, and so we have the next 30 days for due diligence, and we expect that we can close. And so I'm asking for the board's authorization to enter into the contract to purchase that property, and it will become right-of-way. Moffett, as I mentioned earlier, is very narrow, and that is the very end of the street where several driveways come in order to correct the grading and some other issues that are there. We were going to bring that into public right-of-way, and there's an exhibit at the back of your packet that shows the small piece along the road that has never been dedicated as right-of-way, but has been used as road. So, do you have any questions? Okay. I've read the title of the resolution as a first reading. May I have a motion and a second to dispense with the second reading?
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
So we've dispensed with the second reading, so may I have a motion and a second to pass the resolution?
Ms. Hughes moves.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
The resolution is adopted. May I have a motion and a second then to invoke the emergency clause so that the resolution will be effective immediately?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
The emergency clause is invoked. The resolution is now in effect. We expect to be able to close by the end of the month, and this will enable the contractor to keep moving
Great.
on the Moffett project, which is expected to be done probably October, November. Our final resolution of the afternoon, authorizing the township administrator to enter into a contract with Link Interiors for $49,658.80 to perform minor modifications to the Township Administration and Maintenance Building to comply with public health measures eligible for Ohio House Bill 481 coronavirus relief funds, dispensing with the second reading and declaring an emergency. At our last meeting, we passed a resolution allowing us to apply and accept $57,099.24 from the State of Ohio legislature to use toward coronavirus-related expenses to assure public safety. These funds must be used to provide public health capabilities that were not in place before the virus hit. One particular eligibility includes minor public facility modifications to ensure the safety of the public and staff. You're familiar with this building that we are sitting in today. Was built in, this seems to be the theme this evening, 1965. So it's just a little older than the Beatles album, Abbey Road. And it originally was a maintenance garage. It still is a maintenance garage. It is not built as an office building. So when you enter the front door, you enter into an office. You walk through the office to get to this community room and to the bathrooms. So to comply with COVID and other infectious diseases, with this grant, with no money from the township, we are going to be able to modify the facility with a secure entry, separate wall, sliding glass screen, and then a walkway with a partial wall and glass partition. And we also are going to convert some different systems in the building so that they will be touchless. And that will include lights that will all be on sensors, and in the bathrooms there will be touchless faucets. And we appreciate our state legislatures for having passed this grant. And so one final note on that is that we are going to put a request out to the Hamilton County Department of Public Health to see if they have any other best practices that we could use with the balance of the grant. We're using 49,000 of it. We have another 8 to go. That they maybe have heard in working with some of the other communities, and if so, we will put the rest of that money to good use. Are there any questions? All right, so I've read the title of the resolution. You've heard my first reading. May I have a motion and a second to dispense with the second reading?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call, please.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
We have dispensed with the second reading. May I have a motion and a second to pass the resolution?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call, please.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
The resolution is now adopted, so may I have a final motion and a second to invoke the emergency clause to make the resolution effective immediately?
So moved.
Second,
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
yes.
Roll call, please.
Ms.
Yes.
Hughes? Thank you.
Thank you. You guys are very efficient.
Thank you. All right. now
The
we-
emergency clause is invoked, the resolution is now in effect, and that closes our resolutions for this
Okay,
evening.
now we move on to any old business. Any old business to discuss? Any new business to discuss? We've covered a lot, so I make a motion to approve the payment of bills, bank reconciliation, and financial reports. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
Then we go on to announcements, and we'll say one more time about the coffee shop.
Yep.
It's big news. What's the date?
Saturday, September 5th, Labor Day weekend.
Opens up when?
7 a.m.
7
And then
a.m.
they're
Thank
open
you.
up for good after that.
That's,
permanently.
yes.
I'm just saying it's not a temporary
Yeah.
thing. It's
Right, that is
it's-
their
Yeah.
grand opening,
Grand
absolutely.
opening, good, okay, well, congratulations, guys, and I've been through it before, and they're doing a great job. And that, the only other thing I'm gonna say, again, you know, Chris, we're gonna miss you. I really miss, having you here, so, but we welcome Brian Lamar, so it's bittersweet. So, that said, make a motion to sign the minutes and resolutions. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
And I make a motion that we adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, that wasn't so hard, was it?
Welcome aboard.
Good job.
You did good.